What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to the next episode of the Overwatch League offseason recap. Before getting started, I wanted to apologize for taking a week off from the series, but due to the Contenders Gauntlet, many teams remained rather quiet when it came to roster news last week. It would have been a really short video if I went through with it, so it really did not seem worth it to me. I apologize if any of you really missed it and wanted to see another episode, though. With explanations out of the way, let's get into it. I'm going to start with the stuff that happened this week rather than the old stuff from last week, if that's okay. So kicking us off is the NYXL. On Tuesday, they completed their roster by announcing the addition of 4 DPS players: Ivy, Feather, Guangbun, and Flora. On paper, this looks to be a promising rotation, and it's going to likely be led by Ivy, you'd have to imagine. He might be able to act as the seasoned veteran who could lead by example for the other 3 and help them grow as players as a result. Plus, Ivy is a beast in general, easily a top 5 flex DPS from Season 3, so that alone makes it a noteworthy signing. After the season he had on the Fusion, all NYXL fans should be feeling pretty excited. He's such a versatile player who basically takes care of most, if not all, of the projectile needs on his own. Unless something goes terribly wrong or the coaching really screws up for whatever reason, Ivy should make for a wonderful addition to this NYXL roster. It will be crucial for him and Jonek to act like the experienced veterans that this team will need. Now let's talk about their rookies. First, we'll talk about Feather. He too is a flex DPS and he comes from Talon Esports. Now, I haven't watched a ton of Talon myself, but I'm like 90% sure he was like the most hyped up player from that team. It looks like he briefly played alongside Florida's new rookie checkmate on Batlica, now known as OZ Gaming as well. He plays a lot of the same characters that Ivy does, but I still do suspect we could see him in specific metas. Like if we see Echo, let's say, I have confidence that he might play, and I'm sure there's some other characters he could be of use on. He's very talented, and I do like his versatility quite a bit. Another plus is that he's already used to being part of a rotation while being on Talon. As a result, we probably won't have to worry as much about him getting discouraged over the role he plays on this team. I suspect this is going to put him in a better mindset overall because of his experience, which could help him play better when the opportunities do arise for him to see some action. Moving on to Guangbun, it kind of appears, at least from my point of view, that many avid Tier 2 followers are extremely excited about him. He's a Korean hits game player who recently played for Team Cat in Chinese Contenders. He doesn't come from a well-known team, but I assure you he is the real deal. When doing some research, it only took a matter of moments for me to see him pop off and just immediately be on my radar for the rest of the time I watched him. Team Cat might not be very relevant, but this guy knows how to grab your attention. I recall watching a VOD of when his team played Team CC, literally the best team in Chinese Contenders and arguably the best Contenders team we have in general, and literally during the first fight of the game he kills Dia, then forces out the res, then immediately kills Innovation to give his team a commanding advantage. As I continue to watch the VOD, he just kept on getting those types of picks despite it being in a losing effort. The NYXL might have signed a real gem to the team here. This man is a real sharpshooter and I have high hopes for him to be a respectable player. Lastly is Flora, and he too is a hitscan player, but he comes from Team Diamond, but also has previous experience on Meta Athena, O2 Blast, and WGS. He has a rich history of competing, and he's only turning 18 on the 26th though, so you'd have to assume that's why nobody really talked about him all too much until recently. He was far too young, but now that he's of age, he has a real opportunity to be of use in a rotation. Kind of like with Feather, his appearances might be meta dependent. If we see some hardcore double hit scan or maybe Sombra, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the green light. He's the biggest wildcard on that DPS rotation in my opinion. It's very hard to judge how often he's going to play, but still, he is young and he's talented and he could be groomed into something just like the others. I know I said I was going to cover the newer stuff first, but while I'm on the topic of the NYXL and some older news about them from last week, they finished off their support line by picking up the main support player Friday. Friday played alongside fellow rookies Checkmate and Skewed, making him the 3rd player out of that GZ gaming core to join the Overwatch League. He too has a bit of mystery surrounding him. He was anything but out of this world from what I've seen and heard, but you'd have to assume that he did something right during tryouts to impress the NYXL. My assumption is that he plays in a way that greatly complements Jonek's style. In my opinion, the NYXL really wanted to rebuild that team around Jonek, in particular this offseason. So long as Friday makes Jonek happy and he can play adequately on all the different main support heroes, he should in theory do just fine. Whether he can do that or not is pretty uncertain. I'm giving him a chance, no doubt, but he's definitely one of the bigger question marks on the team currently. Ending the NYXL news in this video will be their coaching staff for the 2021 season. As you can see, the big thing that all fans were hoping for came true. IMT has been demoted. He's still going to be on this team, but his role has been diminished. He's going to be the head of data and analytics moving forward, which is probably for the best. IMT still could have a use though. I think it's simply a matter of finding the right role for him. He just wasn't meant to be a coach. I think that's all there is to it. After all the questionable decisions and mistakes, a demotion was definitely necessary. Taking his place will be Why Not, who was promoted from the assistant coaching role. Why Not has history that spans from O2 Ardiant to the Seoul Dynasty. After watching IMT fail to deliver, you'd have to imagine he has a better idea of how to run this team. Hopefully he learned from the mistakes of that entire coaching staff last year and now will be able to properly apply them moving forward. But whether he's terrible, mediocre, or god tier, I'm pretty sure most NYXL fans won't really care all that much because anything is better than another year of IMT. Also joining the staff is Squix as the new assistant coach and Unknown as the new player manager. Squix recently had a strategic coaching position on the London Spitfire, and I would love to see what he can do on a more talented team who have higher potential than that Season 3 London roster. They might be able to execute his strategies and ideas more efficiently. I don't know much about Unknown though, sadly. They don't even have a proper Liquipedia page set up for him, I believe. If you know anything about him and his history, feel free to let me know down in the comment section. And that, I'm pretty sure at least, rounds out the 2021 NYXL roster. So what does everybody think of it? I for one believe this team should not be slept on. I'm not saying they're title contenders or anything like that, but this roster could definitely be competitive. They brought back Jonek for some guaranteed star power, and he's surrounded by many young and promising prospects, plus Ivy. Many of them will have to prove themselves, of course, but I do have faith that at least some of them are going to look good. Trust the process, NYXL fans. Trust the process. Next, I have some London Spitfire news. To start with the thing people care about the most, they finally announced a player addition. The first player to join the London Spitfire roster is none other than Blasé. Some people may not like this addition, considering that he's not EU, and he's already gotten 2 chances in the league and does not have much to show for it. Plus, it's not like he's this insane flex DPS that's a game changer. Trust me, I totally get it if you don't feel satisfied. But there's something very, very important you have to keep in mind about Blasé's playing history in the league. This guy has literally only played for bottom-of-the-barrel teams who struggled non-stop, not to mention that the overall team environments could have been a lot better. Blasé has been left high and dry time after time throughout his Overwatch League career, so as a result, he never got the chance to really consistently showcase what he's capable of. Again, I'm not saying Blasé will be this god-tier superstar, but he might be in for his best year now that he's got access to a better coaching staff and a team that should have better synergy overall. In my honest opinion, Blasé has never really been a bad flex DPS by any means. He's simply never had the resources to be consistent. It's hard to be a bright spot on teams who are not good or have internal issues, or both for that matter, that just completely distract you. London is a fresh start in a way. He's got a better org backing him up this time. Blasé's a pretty flexible player who can fill out all sorts of different needs, ranging from Projectile and Doomfist to Roadhog and Brigitte. He quietly might be a sleeper pick for this 2021 London roster, so I highly recommend giving him a chance. But wait, I have some other London news for you. They finished up their coaching staff by getting Fischer, aka another British Hurricane coach. Some of you may be more familiar with him as a former Tier 2 and Team Denmark DPS player though. After calling it quits as a player at the beginning of 2020, he gave coaching a shot on British Hurricane. While they were already quite dominant without him joining the team, the Hurricane continued to win after he joined, and what some people might not know is that he did occupy the head coaching position, so this man was definitely in charge. Him joining the Spitfire coaching team was a great move. Besides him being from the academy team and all, he genuinely seems like he knows what he's doing. While it definitely won't be as easy as Tier 2, I have high hopes for him to be a solid coach at the Overwatch League level. Generally speaking though, the Spitfire coaching staff appears to be pretty promising. Lots of good and well-known guys make up that coaching team, and I'm super excited to see what they can do. Moving onward, the Paris Eternal picked up former Vancouver Titans DPS player Tsuna. To be completely honest, I don't have a lot to say. Tsuna basically never played after Vancouver signed Shockwave. The guy got 2.5 hours of playtime on a team that was formed in a panic essentially. It doesn't help that he played a lot of characters he's not exactly known for. It's impossible to judge how good he's going to be in my opinion. Playing on Paris this year will give us a much better idea. Playing with Onigod and Naga means he can focus on what he's good at. With that in mind, he should come in for Tracer a lot of the time, and he could probably play a bit of Widow and Hanzo too if he needs to, so like double hit scan, double sniper, anything to do with Tracer is an instance where he's going to be used. While it's doubtful Tsuna will be absolutely insane, maybe he still could prove to be someone who deserves to be in this league. Also, I'm sure that having a French player on the roster is going to make the fans very, very happy, so that serves as a nice bonus. Also joining the Paris Eternal is their new head coach, GetAmazed. His most recent experience comes from the NA Contenders team known as Drifters. He also coached 3rd Impact back in the day. What I also like about GetAmazed though is that he's a former player. He most notably played on the ever so famous EU Contenders team known as Eagle Gaming. I feel like a lot of former players have proven to be pretty decent coaches because of that extra experience and understanding of the game as a former pro. Look at your Kookies of the world. He coached some really talented players from the Tier 2 scene, so he might make for a good leader and teacher that this young team will definitely need. Plus, he too is French, so I'm sure a lot of the fanbase again is going to welcome somebody like him with open arms. And that I believe does conclude the new Paris roster, so let me know what you think down in the comments. Next, we have the Toronto Defiant, who decided to make a roster announcement literally an hour after my previous news recap. Thanks for the plat chat treatment, guys. But in all seriousness, and with jokes aside and everything, Toronto rounded out their roster by picking up the flex DPS out of T1 known as Na1st. This gives Toronto the one thing they were lacking. It fills out that final hole. So strictly from a personnel standpoint, this is good. However, as the only flex DPS on the roster, there's definitely going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform anytime his name is called, and I feel like this guy's stocks have dipped a bit over the last year or so. Many other emerging talents have come about, and he hasn't really kept up as well as he could have in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, he definitely still could be a solid player, especially with such good coaching behind him. I just feel that the hype for him has died down a bit. I don't see people talking about him as much as they used to, that's all. But believe me, on paper he fills out what Toronto needed. He can play Genji, he can play Pharah, he can play Mei, he can flex on Sombra or Tracer if needed, although I doubt you see him play much of those characters considering Logix and Hisu can play them pretty well. But still, he's got a wide hero pool, which you love to see. In other Toronto news, a new assistant coach was added to the mix in Yang1. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because he used to coach Vancouver and Runaway back in the day. So I would say that gives him a somewhat good reputation, although I am aware that the coaching on Vancouver back in the day was not the greatest, but still, I am going to trust in KDG's judgment. Either way, Toronto's team looks pretty whole now. They have what looks to be a completed roster for the time being, and they have 3 coaches again. Not a bad rebuild, to be honest. Like with New York, I would not sleep on the Toronto Defiant. I doubt they'll be competing for a title, but I would be surprised if they weren't at least kind of competitive. Their tank line could be pretty good, their DPS are equipped to deal with a lot of different situations, and their supports have a ton of potential. I look forward to seeing what the Defiant can do in Season 4. Finally, we have Soon joining the Boston Uprising. It's a very weird and unexpected signing. If you ask me, Soon doesn't really fit in from a cultural standpoint. Like, yeah, he'll have fusions and his coach Ascot for some EU presence, but it's not like on Paris. He's not going to have a bunch of Frenchmen to chill with, just one. It feels similar to his time on the Season 1 Valiant after Unko got traded. It becomes more about taking care of business and less about having a bunch of friends on your team. You'd have to imagine Soon probably did not have much of a choice in the matter, though. I doubt a lot of teams were extremely interested in him, so he probably just had to take what he could get. It's a weird fit on face value, but Soon is genuinely not a bad pickup at all. Soon was good on Paris in Season 3, and he always has been a good player. Exy and Sparkle might have been the stars of the show, but Soon consistently showed up when he had to play. I'm 37 has been killing it in Contenders, though, so I'm not quite sure what the dynamic will be between the two of them. Obviously, Soon's probably going to come in for Tracer, but I'm 37's a pretty sick Ashe and McCree. Widow's a bit more up in the air, I guess, but I think you get the point. It's going to be very, very composition dependent. Another way to think about it, though, is that these two could be pretty sick in a double hit scan or like Tracer Ashe meta, let's say. That could be a lethal combination that I'm excited to see in action one day, hopefully. One other thing I'd like to add about this pickup is that Soon always has been a pretty consistent player throughout his entire pro career, and he has a rich history and a bunch of experience that could come in handy on such a young team. Now don't get it twisted, Soon's not going to be that typical leadership figure. He's not like Fusions where he's super loud and vocal. Soon's a really chill and reserved guy, but I still do think he can provide guidance and help a lot of the players on his team grow by simply playing the game. By leading by example, he could serve as an in-game teacher of sorts. Overall, I consider this to be a weird and unexpected signing, but also one that I'm welcoming with open arms. Boston made a good decision in my opinion, and I'm super happy to see Tsuna in the league at least for a little bit longer. Not gonna lie, after his departure from Paris, I was really afraid this might be the end for him based on how he reacted to it all. Tsuna is a fan favorite, and I'd hate to see yet another OG player leave us. Hopefully he pops off this year in a place where he should see more playtime than on Paris. Well, that's all I've got for you in today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel if you're new, and telling me your thoughts on all of this news down in the comments section. You can also follow my Twitter, join my Discord, and become a channel member if you wish to further support me. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.